Today's postcard is from one of the great cities of the British Isles. We're in County Londonderry in the city of Derry. The city of Derry is Ulster's second largest after Belfast, and in World War II it was both a major naval and air base. Al Jolson and Bob Hope entertain the troops here, and here's Ronan McNamara to entertain us all on the city's great 17th century walls, which encircle this historic city. So when was there a first settlement?
Well, the first settlement is said to have come here during the early 6th century, 546 AD to be precise, when our patron saint, St. Columba, or St. Columkill, set up a very famous monastery here, just around the corner basically from here.
Around that way?
Yeah, just around the corner from there. He's said to have set up a monastery, and it's 1400 years actually this year since he died, so it's a very, very important year in the city's history. After that then, it wasn't until the coming of the English here where there was a very large settlement, was when these walls were built. And
so that was the growth of the city then? The
growth of the city, yeah, started to proliferate around that, and then obviously shipping was very, very important here also. The reason why there's a large population here also has to do with the famine. People ended up settling here, and this is when the population exploded during the 1840s, 1850s. Now this city is actually very, very unique in the sense that this city was the first planned city in the whole of the British Isles. It was planned in 1613, and a very strong connection with France in the sense that we are said to have got our original street plan from a town just outside Paris called Vitry-le-François. And they also say that the city of Philadelphia and towns and cities in Virginia took its original street plan from this city here. From this city here, and there are records in the Tower Museum alluding to that, so I am not lying, Russell.
No, I'm sure you're not. We were told, in fact, by an Irish woman, that just because you hear everything from an Irish person, you don't necessarily believe it.
Well, I'm only half Irish, Russell.
We'll believe the other half. I found this now, Hangman's Bastion. Ronan, tell me.
Well, this basically, we had a great siege here called the Siege of Derry. You know, a lot of people might have heard of a battle called the Battle of the Boyne, which was a great battle between two English kings, King James II, the dethroned Catholic king, and King William of Orange. Before the Battle of the Boyne occurred, however, there was a siege called the Siege of Derry, which took place in 1689. King William's forces were inside the city walls here, and King James's forces were outside trying to enter the city. This was the last remaining Protestant or Williamite bastion during the 1600s, and it was a failed attempt by King James's forces to try and enter the city. However, one man tried to, I'll not even mention his name, who actually tried to betray the city, and what he did was he actually he had the keys of the gates, and he tried to jump over the walls, but unfortunately he is said to have almost hung himself by getting caught in the ropes as he was fleeing.
And it was just here?
Just behind here. Remember, there's about a 20-foot drop behind here, Russell. The walls are almost 20 foot high all the way around.
Well, we're at the Bishopsgate now. Important to the walls?
Extremely important. I suppose, Russell, it will be the most famous of all the gates, because on the 18th of April 1689, this is where King James himself actually came up right up to the city walls here.
Oh, over this side?
He came with actually about 12 of these merry men, and he was getting rather desperate at this stage. The siege had more or less gone into about 50 or so days, and he came up to the walls here and he pleaded with the people of the city to let him in. Remember, inside the city walls were the Williamites, King William's forces, and nobody knew what to do, but the apprentice boys seized the initiative. They took the keys out of the city hall where the diamond actually is now, and they closed the gates and shouted the term "No surrender." After that then, instead of offering him a nice cup of tea, they actually fired more cannonballs at him, and about half of his entourage were actually killed. With that then, he actually went back up to the Cregan Hills that you can see up there.
With the lights on the
where
top.
the lights are up on the top, which was obviously there were no houses there then, and they camped there, and this was the longest siege in British military history. It lasted for 105 days.
Goodness me.
And thousands of people starved to death. And remember, again, there was a great French connection because King James II had fled to France France, where he got the backing of the French king, King Louis XIV. So he had about 10,000 French soldiers on his side. What he tried to do was starve the people out of the city. He almost succeeded. Reverend George Walker, who was the governor of the city during the siege of Derry, said that if the siege had lasted for another 2 days, everybody in the city would have died. People ended up eating things like rats, dogs, mice, and a couple of people were on the verge of becoming cannibals. Things were that bad. You can imagine yourself, Russell, 105 days without any food or water in any circumstance.
You'd be peckish.
You would be fairly peckish, all right, you know. And as I said, the conditions were very, very severe. Thousands of people lost their life. And the reason why the siege lasted for so long was because a French engineer called Dupontis built a boom or a barrier across the river Foyle to stop the ships, actually, King William's ships coming into the city. And it wasn't until July of 1689 that a man called Captain Michael Browning, master of the ship Mountjoy, broke through this boom or barrier, that the siege was finally ended and King James's men fled. And this is when they met head to head then at the famous Battle of the Boyne.
And that very impressive and grand building behind us with the green tiled tower and spire, what's that?
That's right, that's the Guildhall, or the City Hall. And again, the reason why it's called the Guildhall, remember that the city's name changed from Derry to Londonderry under a charter in 1613, and by a charter by King James I. And it was London companies or London guilds that invested money into the city, so hence the name the Guildhall or the City Hall.
It's getting dark, isn't it? Because dusk is falling on Derry, but we've just got time to talk about St Columb's Cathedral.
St Columb's Cathedral, yes, it's one of the two cathedrals in the city. This is actually the Protestant cathedral, and it dates back to 1633. A very, very famous cathedral. A lot of famous deans and bishops are all buried in there. And probably our most famous dean is a dean called Dean Berkeley, who was a dean here between 1728 and 1734, where he was a great philosopher, where he then went over to America, and the famous Berkeley University in California was named after him.
Derry's image has suffered in recent times because of what they call locally the Troubles. The city has been largely rebuilt, but still retains its historic identity, with some excellent places for residents and tourists to enjoy. And that's just what I did on my day in Derry. I enjoyed the place and its people.